When digital bank comes in, it is actually a new engine of growth for the bank. The onboarding rate having a digital bank, right, for Atlas, it's actually as good as 70 physical branches that we have today. It is about breaking the gravity of traditional banking mindset. We need to basically unlearn the traditional banking mindset.
But how can you bring the Sharia banking to the modern world? So Mambu, we are doing a lot of investment in Islamic banking.
Consumers are increasingly having very high expectation from their digital experiences, driven from the kind of experiences they get from various digital platforms. Now, Islamic banks are not excluded from this race. If you look at the percentage of contribution of the Islamic bank to the overall banking sector, it stands at 46.6%, which is why Islamic banks of today need to drive their modernization activities and be able to keep up with all these kind of consumer expectations that's constantly evolving. Today, I'm joined by Hasrizal Hassan, who is the head of digital banking of Bank Muamalat, and also Shariah, who is the principal solutions architect for Asia Pacific in Mambu. Now, together, they've worked to launch Atlas, a brand new spin-off of Bank Muamalat, which they have launched within a short span of 9 months. And today, we're here to talk about this project. Now, Hasrizal, maybe let's try to take a step back first and understand Bank Muamalat's digital ambitions and its overall broad directions. So, in 2022, the bank laid out its ambition to be the strongest Islamic bank by 2026, which is this year. Since you're heading the digital banking department, right, how big of a role did digital banking play in this overall grand strategy?
Sitting here in 2026, right, if I look back at why we introduced Rise 26 Plus, which is our overall business transformation strategy for the next 5 years in 2022, we look at how to improve 3 areas, basically. We looked at the resiliency of the bank, we look at how to improve the efficiency, and we look at the customer affinity portion of the bank. And I can confidently say that we have moved from a niche player to become the performance leader in Malaysia. Because Rise 26 Plus, actually, the strategy anchors on 3 pillars, right? Number 1 is about value creation for the customers, right? Number 2 is about introducing new avenues of growth, right? And number 3 is about more internal, building high-performance team. So with these 3, when I say performance leader, we don't mean by strongest, we don't mean by being the biggest asset size in the market. It's about, the best return on equity, the best return on assets, significant reduction in our cost to income ratio. These are the performance measurements or metrics that we actually looked at in order to achieve the Rise 26 Plus targets, right? When digital bank comes in, it is not a rule or it is not a project, right? It is actually a new engine of growth for the bank. Like the second pillar I mentioned just now, the new avenues of growth. So when digital bank kicks in last year, when we actually launched to public, we take a look at the 6 months of performance for the digital bank, and we've achieved 61% new to bank customer onboarding.
Right.
And the onboarding rate having a digital bank, right, for Atlas, it's actually as good as 70 branches, physical branches that we have today. Onboarding customer is similar to 1 virtual branch, which is Atlas, right? So that efficiency translate into faster onboarding, acquisition of customer, cheaper cost to serve for the particular customer. And that's basically what it meant to us in becoming the strongest Islamic bank in Malaysia.
So I think that's interesting, right? Because we talk about growth and performance. It's not just the fact that the digital bank is able to introduce a whole set of customers that weren't previously Muamalat customers, but you're also saying that the cost efficiency is also there as well.
Continue tracking the customer acquisition cost. Yeah. Of course, when you're new, the cost is still slightly on the higher side, but there is a benchmark that we are targeting of at least, if you see globally or in the Europe or American markets, it's about $100 per customer. Right. For in Malaysia, you just convert that, is about 100 ringgit per customer. That's the aim.
So pretty consistent with more or less global benchmarks, right? My curiosity is that within this 61 or 60 odd % of new customers, what is the demographic like?
So when we look at first age demographic, right? 85% of the customers are age 45 and below.
Okay.
Right? Even higher percentage at less than 35 years old. Right? That's about 27% representation. In terms of Muslim customers, it's similar to Malaysian Muslim market. It's about 70%. And to our surprise as well, that non-Muslim actually on board Atlas as well. I think it goes to the kind of rewards and perks that they get actually when they actually on board Atlas.
Interesting. And I think the other thing that we were talking about earlier is how you guys were able to kind of launch Atlas within 9 months together with Mambu as well, right? Walk us through that journey, and then maybe later we can also jump to Shirah to get his perspective from Mambu on both the journey of building this new platform together.
I mean, together jointly with Mambu, Backbase, Google Cloud, right? These three anchor partner that we have building Atlas by Bank Muamalat. I think the mindset that we have in order to achieve our most viable products in 9 months, it is about breaking the gravity of traditional banking mindset, right? We need to basically unlearn the traditional banking mindset and start looking at the solutions, the technology, cloud-based model, composable architecture, and have the MVP kind of mindset. So we know that at the end of 9 months, what we want to launch first, right? In terms of the product and what connects all these products together. The challenge in terms of building Atlas, right? It's not so much the technology. It is actually the regulatory synchronization. Right? Because technology is new, cloud-based model, right? But standards, regulations is still there in order to secure customers, basically money, right? We cannot do away with some of the requirements that is been laid down by central bank. But of course, we look at how efficient can that be while continue to comply with regulations. And of course, at the end of the day, building Atlas, it's basically we bake the compliance and the security into Atlas. It's not bolted, it's basically baked in. Why I say that, because bolted means that, you just take
The thought, right?
Yeah, I just take whatever and then just connect it. It's not, because at the end of the day, I mentioned just now, we need a frictionless customer experience, and that's where we see what are the steps that we can actually reduce. Because if I look at requirements, there's so many information that we need in order to actually onboard a particular customer. Sometimes we question, why do we need all this information? From 20 steps, we could actually onboard a customer in 5 steps, right? But still, there is a reasons behind it. At the end of the day, we balance things and make sure that, every sprints, right? All this, the team that work together, risk, compliance, all, and the Sharia scholar talk to the developers of Atlas in order to achieve that 9 months.
I think that's the common theme that I get speaking to a lot of bankers, is that sometimes there is a lot of unlearning to do. And I think just a couple of years back, to think about launching and spin-off is in 9 months is quite unthinkable, because there was a time that launching a product would take more than 9 months, right? Jumping back to Shira, right? What was that experience like? Now, what were some challenges that happened along the way in building this new spin-off in 9 months?
Yeah, and I think as my colleague mentioned over here, that the technology wasn't really the challenge. Like, I mean, we are aware Mambu is a SaaS proposition. If you sign with Mambu, the next day the platform is available, right? It's a proven platform. It's a regulated platform. I think the challenge became when we came into the Malaysian market, it was, okay, how do we deal with the regulator? As was mentioned that, okay, regulator has a lot of compliance checks and risks, and surely so, right? So it was, okay, how do we actually address those things? A lot of things were already addressed in the platform, but it was our role to help Bank Muamalat to facilitate that conversation. It wasn't that we went to the regulator and said, oh, we are the best core banking on the cloud. No, that's not what happened. We said, we are going to launch core on the cloud, or we are going to have the core on the cloud for Bank Muamalat. And these are the way we secure the data. This is how we secure the data in transit and, storing it in the database. This is how your customers can actually make sure that their data is safe with us. So I think that regulation journey that we had, and you probably remember that as well, even with BNM, that took a long time. It was a lot of toing and froing, a lot of calls, a lot of late night calls for us. A few people, and Google Cloud was also very helpful in those calls. So yeah, I'd say one was that big challenge. The second one, which again I think you touched upon, it's about internal. Sometimes the bank is not ready to become a digital bank. Right, like, and I'll take an example. I've worked with a lot of such bigger banks who want to launch certain new innovative products in market, and when they start doing it, their scope is small, and they say, "Fantastic, let's do this." But then scope creep becomes big, because some head of department says, "I want this." Another head of department says, "I want this." Right. So I think what Atlas did really well was they ring fenced the entire thing, right, and they said, you are in charge of deciding what goes in the MVP. Don't listen to people from a risk compliance perspective, but don't listen to them that I want this product, I want this feature. Listen to your customer rather than listening to banks internally, I guess. And I think that's what we've been successful with. Yeah.
I think that's a great point, right? Because there's so many times, not just banks, sometimes we see fintechs and even startups, like that creep comes in, and you see within the app there are so many unnecessary features that nobody even uses. So it's really important to stay laser focused on what the user needs are, right? But taking a step back, I think there are people who would swear by this spin-off model. There are detractors who say that this isn't necessarily the best model for banks to be able to innovate, right? And I think to cite some examples, I think if you look at JP Morgan's Fin, they closed down within a year. BBVA Simple, they also closed down within a year. HSBC's Zing, which was a famous example last year, they came out, they were shouting about trying to disrupt and challenge Wise. They also closed down after a while. So I'm sure you've looked at all these cases before deciding to even start Atlas. So what were the key reasons, what were the key things that convinced you that this is the right model for Muamalat?
Yeah, I mean, that's the speedboat approach, right? You have the mothership and there's a speedboat approach on the side, right? If, let's say, we decided, say, 4 years ago, there's going to be a big bang, convert the whole entire bank to a cloud-based model, composable architecture, I bet you will be sitting in a committee meeting still today.
Yeah.
Things are not removed, right? Detractors might say that this is something that might not work in terms of a speedboat approach, right? I would say that it's the survival mode, right? For lack of a better word, it's a survival mode. We need to basically move into the new advanced technologies in terms of our banking. We need to look at, and that technology needs to enable banks to actually offer beyond banking services, which is where Atlas comes in terms of one of the lifestyle features, right? What the market wants, right? Again, the word efficiency comes into play. And once, Atlas or digital banking team needs to fail fast and learn fast in order to make sure that we R&D ourselves. And the past 6 months basically show or solidify in terms of the performance what we wanted to achieve in terms of efficiency, customer onboarding, and the cost to serve. That's where we start to look at the mothership. Let's part or migrate, product by product, group of customers, one by one into this new technology, right? So the grand plan is actually using the technology for the entire bank. Right. Atlas is sort of like the R&D part to make sure that things are going to work, that we can actually, migrate in the next 2 to 3 years, right? So that's the whole idea of the speedboat.
You go here, you experiment, see what works, while the things that keep the light on is
Right.
same, and nothing fails over there. Yeah, I think that's the important point over there. So I guess, Shariah, when you looked at all the clients that you've worked with in the past, right, there's those who go for an approach where they try to overhaul, they try to hollow out their core, and there's those who are like Muamalat, they try to do a speedboat kind of approach. What has worked in the past when you look at these examples?
That's actually a very good question, because it's a really case by case strategy, right? It really depends on what the bank is intending to do. Is the bank intending to, as in this case, look at a new revenue model as well and a test bed for their aging legacy stack? If that is what they're looking for, then absolutely speedboat is the right approach, because you get the innovation and the speed and agility from the speedboat and modern technology, but you get the risk and compliance from the big enterprise mothership, right? So that's the best approach for that sort of bank. However, there are a lot of banks who might have recently modernized their technology stack. And when I say recent, maybe in the last 10 years, in the last 15 years. But technology is evolving at a pace where probably those platforms haven't been able to keep up with what's happening right now in the market, right? So then they need to revamp again. But because of certain vendor lock-ins, they're not able to completely transform. So that's where we see a lot of approaches of hollowing out the core and having a dual core approach, which is not a bad thing to do, because sometimes when you start thinking about this core is better for my legacy products, bread and butter legacy products, old brick and mortar sort of products, but I need a modern core to have some innovative core products in the market as well. And then you run these 2 cores or 3 cores side by side, and that strategy might work for a particular bank. So I don't think there is a one size fits all. We at Mambu, we are always working with the bank to actually figure out what is it that you want to achieve. And then we would suggest that, would a dual core or a multi-core strategy work for you, or is a speedboat approach a better option in your case or not?
Give us a sense of what that conversation is like when you approach a bank. How does your team consult and assess and talk to your clients to determine which is the best route? Maybe even using Muamalat.
Yeah, that's actually a great question, and that is where our skills come to light, right? I think in a way, when we start, so we call it discovery. Where we actually spend some time with our customers. It's not about us trying to sell the platform to them, saying that we are Mambu, we are composable. That's not what we're trying to do. We are really trying to understand what are our customers or soon to be customers pain points, right? What are they really struggling with today? Is it efficiency that they want to achieve as part of their day-to-day workflows? Is it more that they are struggling with data? Their data is just all over the place and they don't have structured data sets? Or is it just that they actually want to launch products but they're stuck with a particular legacy vendor where every time they want to launch a new repayment feature, the vendor will give them a bill of $100,000 and a timeline of 12 months. Exactly, right? So that is where we actually come to light, because being a composable platform, we can actually quickly integrate with other components that the bank might already have, or we can actually get our best of breed partners to help us in that case. But also, as a SaaS platform, we are keeping our platform up to date with global trends. So Mambu is not just relevant in APAC. Mambu is a global organization. We work with banks in LATAM, in US, in Europe. So the efficiencies that we are getting is, if something new is coming in Europe somewhere, that becomes part of the platform. And then Bank Muamalat would be able to use that feature as part of their SaaS subscription, right? So those things also, you start seeing a lot of new mindsets come into the bank, go like, maybe I could do something like this, rather than, being stuck with the particular geography that we are operating in a way.
That's nice. Then we get cool features a bit faster than usual. I guess the other thing, Azrullah, is that inclusivity is a big part of the Muamalat agenda, even in your plans, your annual report. It's mentioned numerous times, right? Thinking about the digital banking agenda as a whole, is it really solving for inclusivity? Because I think Malaysia is already quite banked, right? And we don't really know if it's really moving the needle. So how is introducing something like Atlas moving the needle for inclusivity in Malaysia?
For me, it's really about the market share of the underserved and unserved, right? At the end of the day, right, when we design Atlas, right, we need to take into account the current evolution of workforces and the general public is that you don't work 9 to 5, not everyone work 9 to 5 and earn an income, right? There are various type of people or occupation that is there, right? The content creators, the gig workers and all that. At the end of the day, we see how do we serve this particular segment, right? How do we build alternative credit scoring in order to offer them financing products, right? Because everybody needs financing at one point or at the stage of their life, right? Whether you want to buy, mobile phones, want to get married, you want to further your education and all that. This is where Atlas comes in. The traditional bank or the more a steadier bank, right, would already have all this data from 20, 30 years of the business in Malaysia, right? And for us is that this is where we look into the other side of the public or customers in terms of collecting behavioral data, right? In order for us to basically create a product that can help the customer in their day-to-day lives. Right? Hence, that's why it comes to the lifestyle portion, right? The Islamic faith portion that would help improve in terms of engagement with the customer and also the stickiness.
I think that's a good point because there's a lot of people who participate in the new economy. And when we think about gig workers, it's not always just the food delivery drivers or ride-sharing drivers, but there are also a lot of those who are in the creative economy who sometimes are actually quite high earners compared to even your 9 to 5s, right? But a lot of them, even I do know personally, they might struggle to get a loan, they might struggle to get accounts. I think there is still a good segment that remains untapped over there. So Shariah, for you, because you guys also work across geographies as well, right? How have you seen this kind of digital banking spin-offs or digital banks kind of drive more inclusive economies in those regions that you guys work with?
Yeah, and at Mambu, we've been actually very lucky that a lot of our customers are primary customers who've targeted financial inclusion in those markets that didn't have these sort of services for the underserved, as you mentioned. Now, one of the things I've been a personal advocate of is I think generally these innovations come from a fact that a person sees a problem and then finds a better way to solve that problem, right? So a lot of these good digital banks or lenders or whatever you see in market, these or the founders of these banks, they have been on the ground, they have been part of the problem. So they've been able to see the problem from close up, and that's how they know how to solve that problem in a particular way, right? Now, if you went to a bank and you said, I want to give a loan to a mom pop shop here and there, they don't have a credit background, and the bank was like, nah, I'm not interested. But a lot of these founders, they have actually worked at that level, and that's why they are more close to the problem and they're able to solve the problem in that way. But you're right. I think Philippines is a great example where you've seen massive amount of influx of, e-wallets, lenders who are actually giving people credit who were not considered credit worthy by some of the bigger banks. But it's not that these guys are failing. They are actually still, repaying, because in the end, if everybody wants to have a good life, people are happy to, pay a few dollars or a few pesos on interest if they can actually have a better life. So yeah, financial inclusion has been massive, and not just in Asia. I think our customers have been pioneering it in LATAM as well. LATAM is a very big geography for financial inclusion as well.
Very, very interesting. Now, I'm very encouraged because I think in my years of observing this space, a lot of the conversation of digital transformation is normally dominated by the conventional side of banking. But more and more this past 5 to 10 years, I'm seeing a lot of innovation coming out from Islamic banks and even Muamalat as well, right? Now, as Rise 26 draws to a close, can you give us a sense of what kind of initiatives we can expect from you guys in the next 5 years, specifically to the digital side of things?
Yeah. So I think this one keyword that has been something that we've been working on and trying to improve further, and in the next 5 years we will see this being implemented and launched as part of our product and service offerings, right? It's about hyper personalization, right? To basically introduce a hyper-personalized customer experience and also product, you must start with the data after that, right? So right now is the period of gathering the data. When we sit down together as a team, right, in the bank, jointly with all the other subject matter experts, right? We don't just look at banking apps or other competitors' banking apps. We go beyond the financial services industry and we take a look at the e-commerce side. We take a look at the coffee app, right? Those that sells ice cream, right? Why do people, what takes in that particular app, right? Why do people engage, right? So we try to take on how do we actually offer personalization to this particular customer, right? To a certain extent, the buttons, the widget style of an app, and we work closely with Mambu, Google Cloud, and also Backbase in order to realize this idea of hyper personalization. So I guess in the next 5 years, it will be more advanced hyper personalization that will happen in the industry for banking apps.
And I think it's an important point you brought up, because your customers are not comparing you to the next Islamic bank or even the next conventional bank, right? They're comparing your digital experiences to all the other digital apps they use, and it's important to keep up with that kind of experience. Sure. So when you zoom out and you think about the future of Islamic digital finance, right? What does that look like? What can we expect?
Oh, I think it has a fantastic future ahead. See, Islamic finance has always been around, right? Yes, now it is getting more light. I think it is obviously got to do with the fact that there is more awareness, especially in the youth, about certain things. People want to get more involved in how their money is being treated, how their money is being kept, where is their money going as well. Like we saw a big wave of sustainability as well. There was a lot of where the youth was obviously still is concerned about climate change, and we saw them really questioning their banks about, do you fund these big coal miners, or are you funding these big industries? So I think similarly, Islamic finance is also going through a bit of a revolution right now, where people are taking kind of ownership of their money, and they're going, okay, Islamic finance exists. It is a tradition in a way, certain things are done, but can we revamp them? Can we actually bring it in the modern era, have the same principles, but can I have it on my convenience? I think that's where hyper-personalization also comes in, right? Which is, yes, I'm not saying go break the rules of Sharia banking, but how can you bring the Sharia banking to the modern world so that where I'm sitting on my couch, I should be able to do Islamic banking rather than actually me going to a traditional Islamic bank. So Mambu per se, we are doing a lot of investment in Islamic banking. We've obviously launched our first few set of products in Islamic banking, Islamic profit sharing, etc. And our roadmap will continue to evolve in the next few months and years. The great approach we've taken is we've actually worked with our customers. So we've worked with Bank Muamalat, Bank Aladdin, Bank Islam. So Mambu is lucky to have actually a lot of Islamic banking customers, and we worked hard with them. So we actually work with these banks and say, okay, what do you want? What do your customers want? Right? And that becomes kind of part of our roadmap. Because if we just started going by the book and said, okay, this is how Sharia banking is done, let's just build this, I don't think anybody will be willing to actually, take on that particular software. we are lucky. We actually operate in other Islamic markets as well, like Saudi and the Middle East. So again, global economies of scale. We can actually learn from what's happening in those markets, what's happening in the APAC market, and actually bring those features to life in Mambu. So Islamic banking has just started. You will see a lot more happening in Mambu, and you will see a lot more of those rollouts with our customers in the near future.
A real wealth of knowledge to draw from. Right? And I like your point because I think, well, Gen Y are also very value-based, but increasingly when we look at Gen Z, they are also very driven by the value and their faith as well, right? And it shouldn't be a trade-off. It shouldn't be, I want to adhere to my faith, then I have to trade off the experience. It should be consistent, and I think that's really the direction that is Islamic banking is heading towards. And gentlemen, with that, thank you for your time. I appreciate your views and insights.